Hi guys, Mel the Terrain Tutor here again with another simple tip for you. And in this simple tip we're going to be talking about Gloop, terrain gloop. Now I've said in previous videos that I'm not a big fan of using plaster of Paris to cover terrain. I did it ages ago, and the problem with plaster of Paris is it's quite fragile. If it gets chipped, the white comes through and it's so obvious. And you know, there's problems with it. But I've been playing around. Now I use I use these, and I don't know if you've ever seen these before, but these are Hearst Arts moulds. They're used for creating little blocks, and I haven't got any to hand at the minute, for building dungeons and houses and all sorts of wonderful things. The website's hurstarts.com. Just give a search for it and there's some fantastic stuff on there. Yeah, so check them out. But I use this stuff. Yeah. Now this, it looks like plaster of Paris. This is normal plaster of Paris. This is something called Cristacal. Okay, and Cristacal is about 10 times harder than plaster of Paris. Okay, it's used by the building industry to make fascias and those fancy things that go like round light fittings. It's really light, it's really strong, and it has a very quick drying time. We're talking about 15 to 20 minutes to dry here. Okay, but I'm going to take you through the process that I use to make this sort of stuff. Now, this is a bit of carved polystyrene that the kids knock together. It's horrible, to be truthful, but the kids do like to play. They also had a go at painting it. Yeah, but what I did is I used it as a bit of an example to do some texturing. Now, I'm not sure how well you can see the texture on that because it's white, but it has come out with a really rocky texture. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through how to do this, okay, and how to actually make this stuff up, and you know, I'm going to do my thing with it, okay. So shall we crack on? Let's crack on. Let's go cameras down, we'll get stuck in. Okay, so here we have, it's messy, paper down guys. Here we have a bit of polystyrene, yeah? And all I did is I cut a chunk out of 2-inch white expanded polystyrene bead foam, okay? And then I just blasted it with a heat gun to get a rough hill shape, and then I spray painted it, yeah, with black primer, okay? So the heat gun wasn't a particularly effective way of doing it, you know, but I got this basic shape because I mean I literally did just cut it straight out of the chunk and just blasted it. Okay, yes, primer does melt the surface, but I wanted to come up with something that I could show you the benefits of using this texturing. Okay, and so obviously you can see all the holes, you can tell it's melted polystyrene. Yeah? Okay, and so we'll be able to see the end results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this aside quickly, and I'm going to show you how I mix up my gloop. So I've got my old measuring jug, my mixing spoon, and in there's a bit of water. Okay, and that's about 60 mils. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of texture. And now this is my mixed tub. You know, you can use all sorts of things for texturing. You can use sawdust, sugar, salt, literally any granules that are going to not dissolve with water, yeah, you can use for texturing, yeah, but I'm just using bog standard modelling grit. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shake in a little bit of that. Okay, and to give you an idea, if you look in, yeah, it's floating on the surface. It's not a sludge, it's just, I'd say it's enough to barely cover the base of the jug. It doesn't cover the entire base. Okay, so you really aren't talking much. Next up, I'm going to get my PVA. Now the reason we add PVA to the mix is because casting plaster, no matter what it is, if it's put on thinly, it's quite fragile. And so by adding PVA to the mix, all I'm doing is I'm helping it bond together. So I've put probably about a teaspoon's worth of PVA in there. And what I'm going to do is before I add my casting powder, I'm going to mix that all up so it goes all watery. And it's taking longer than I thought, so this may skip forward. Okay, that's all mixed up now, and it's the consistency of water. The reason it took so long is because the PVA had bonded to the gravel a little and made clumps. I suppose something to take from this is mix your PVA in first and then add the gravel. Don't know why I've ever not thought of that before. Right, here's my Cristacal. Now, as I said, Cristacal is an industrial casting powder. It's at least 10 times stronger than Plaster of Paris. Yeah, you can buy it online. You can buy it from your local builders merchants. There's also Hydrocal. There's a few others. Okay, just do a bit of searching on casting powders and you'll find a wiki page which details them all. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, you should sprinkle this in, but to be truthful, it doesn't really matter. You know, if you're casting hearse blocks and you do it properly, for this sort of stuff, just lob it in. Yeah, and it's like that. And you give it a good stir. Again. Now I should say, this doesn't take long to watch it set. It's got about a 3-minute curing time, which means you've got to be quick. If it does start to set, then what you've got to do very quickly is just give it a stir again. And what that will do is it'll get it moving, it'll make it more liquidy. I don't know what happens chemically, but that's what happens when you give it a stir. And it's already starting to thicken up. Now what I'm going to do is just show you what it looks like now. Yeah, nice and runny. And it's already starting to gloop up. And what I want is it just a little bit thicker. So not milk, but more cream. See that? It's going creamier. Yeah, that'll do. Just give it 30 seconds while I get this other bit. Okay, and you can see it. It's like thick cream starting to set. Okay, obviously the watery stuff is at the top and the denser stuff is at the bottom. Yeah, there you are, it's blobbing now. When it starts to blob, that's when you start getting the right consistency. So put that to that side. Pull out my naff bit of polystyrene hill. Get out my brush. Okay. Use an old brush for this, obviously. It does clean off really well as long as you wash it in water before it completely sets, okay? But use an old brush. Don't use your wargaming brushes, for God's sake. Right, so what I'm going to do is really simply, I'm going to dip my brush in, yeah, and then smooth it out. And you can see it's going down like thick paint. In fact, thick watery. Can you have thick watery paint? And you'll notice what I'm doing with it is I'm filling in the indents, all those little holes, and I'm just smoothing it over. Don't worry about getting track marks or runny drips or anything like that at the moment. Yeah, layer that on. See that runny drip down there? Don't worry about it. Just spread it out. Yeah, if you miss any as it dries, it's not a problem. I'll cover that in just a second. Okay, so I'm probably going to fast forward this, yeah, because you can see what I'm doing. And there we have it covered, guys. It's completely covered. As you can probably see, you can see where the ridges are popping through just slightly. I'm going to attempt to bring it up to the camera so you can see a better idea of it. I really should do more close-ups or get another camera set up. But you can see where it's basically filled in all those polystyrene indents. And it's very smooth. It's still wet. Okay, it doesn't look textured at all, to be truthful, other than, you know, it's white gloop over the polystyrene. There's some runny bits here, yeah. There's a lot of runny bits here where I've laid it on quite heavy. Don't worry about those, okay, because what we're going to do is I'm going to leave this for about 5 minutes so it's sort of partially set. Like I said, this stuff sets in about 15 minutes. And in 5 minutes what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with my brush cleaned out and I'm going to stipple it, and that will get rid of any brush marks, any large smooth runny areas, and you'll see the effect. Now just before I do, yeah, it's literally just been 1 or 2 minutes, maybe 3 or 4 since I mixed this up. In fact, yeah, and as you can see, it really is already starting to set. And what I'm going to do, I know it sounds quite strange, but I'm going to smooth that out there and leave it on the paper. Just on the basis that, so you can see when, you know, when I come to mess around with it, I can show you what I'm doing. So what I'll do is just quickly, just smooth that out a bit more, because I've got an idea. So I'll leave that there. Okay. Right, guys, this needs about 5 minutes. before I can do the next part. So I'm going to nip off and I'm just going to very quickly wash out my gear. And it's been 5 minutes, guys, and it's already starting to set quite considerably. So remember this blob I put down? What I'm going to do is show you that I can already, at 5 minutes, break bits off it. Do you see that? I'm literally cutting through it and I'm breaking it off as a piece. Okay? So this is already setting, and you can mould this, it's squidgy. Okay, so it's still workable. But it's only literally been 5 minutes and it's already starting to set. So what I'm going to do now is I've cleaned my brush off and I'm going to come back, and what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to stab it. I think I may have left it a little bit too long, guys, but what I'll do is I'll put a bit of force in this to get it in there. I mean, when you actually do it at home and when you're doing it, you've got your test piece, you can stab that. I mean, that's, yeah, and see how it goes. Now this is coming, yeah, and luckily it's a wet brush, which sort of lets me rework it a little. You know, if you had moisture in, if you're worried about the setting times on this sort of stuff, you can always add more water, to be perfectly honest. Don't be afraid of playing around with the mix and seeing what results you can get. You know, just what I'd suggest is work it on test pieces like this first, and you can make one big test piece and then you can literally play with it in little stripes and sort of figure out what works. I think, yeah. Is this shaking the camera? Is we're almost there. Now, to be truthful, I did leave this a little too long, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. Yeah, the other thing you can do is get a harder brush. Things that you can use are nail brushes. The brushes on those are incredibly tough. You can use shoe cleaning brushes, yeah, especially ones with not the fine polishing ones, but the actual boot polish appliers. Okay, and they work really well. Okay, but I'm just literally going over here as best as I can because I want this to look as good as possible for the video, even though I've left it a little too long before I started stippling this. Okay, but I think that's paid off. Yeah, I think that'll do. Now what I want to do is very quickly show you, yeah, remember this bit that we put down? You see me just do that. Set. Still wet, but it's lifting and it's hard. Okay, guys? So, what I'm going to do is I am literally... I'm a little disappointed actually because the other one, this one was far more pronounced because I stippled it more early while it was still a little bit wetter. But I was having a quick brew and a fag, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, but that's the process. Make sure that you do it while it's still in the squidgy form before it starts to set, guys, because this is really starting to set now. Now what I've got to do now is just simply leave that to dry, and this is going to be dry enough to work with and to paint with in about 20 minutes. I mean, it'll be set in about another 10. It'll be hard, but you know, there is still moisture in there, there is still a thin coat, and there's a chance that if you don't let it dry out completely, then what will happen with a thin coat is if you apply paint or anything like that, it's going to re-wet it and you're going to lose the stippling, the texture. Okay, so I'll just put that by the side of it. Not bad. Right, mate. Right, guys. Sorry, mate. Right, guys. What I'll do is... Oh, blob. Right, guys. What I'll do is I will see you in about 15-20 minutes. See you in a minute, guys. So it's been about 15 minutes and it's virtually dry now. It's hard, yeah, and my working pieces, my test pieces, yeah, they're snapping with quite a clean, crisp sound. And they are quite strong. It'll take 24 hours for this to fully harden. I mean, you can put it in a warm room and it will harden more. Now it's time to fess up, guys. Yeah, me having that fag and that brew while this was sort of semi-setting, I got too cocky, and you know, it set too much before I could stipple it properly. Now I'm just going to fiddle with my webcam settings so you can actually see this. Yeah, do you see that? It's actually still quite smooth. Okay, it hasn't got the same texture as this one. This one's far more rocky and bitty. Okay, but it's exactly the same process. What happened here was I left this too long. Oh, let me do that. I left this too long, yeah, to set before I stippled it. Okay, now I'm not going to pretend I'm some amazing guru and throw this away and redo the video. This is, you might as well learn from my mistakes. Everyone makes them. Okay, but that's what's happened if you leave it a little too long. What you really want to be doing is messing around with it. And the thing to learn from this, and also just take a quick notice, do you see the difference in colours? It gets lighter as it gets drier. That's how you know when it's dry. I mean, this is completely dry. But the thing to learn from this, okay, is don't go for a fag and leave Cristacal setting, okay, especially when you're making gloop. Sit over it, get your brush, dab it in your test bits, okay, so you can see the consistency, and then get stuck into your model. Okay, so caveats, you know, I cocked up, guys, plain and simple, but that's where we're going with this. Now, what I do at this stage normally is I would add some more texture in the way of grit. I'd basically put a little bit of water, PVA down, and in this case I'd put it over the smooth, really gloopy areas and the smooth ones, and a coat across there. Yeah, I'd wait for that to dry, and then I would seal it with watered down PVA, this stuff. Okay, a couple of quick squirts, and that will just soak into the top layer, yeah, and plasticize it, making it really sturdy. One of the downsides of using this stuff is on white foam, if you press in, it will crack. Okay, so just plasticizing it stops that problem, you know, and it stops the chipping and all that sort of stuff. So that's it, guys. That is how to make what's called terrain gloop. Now, I'm not going to take this any further. Okay, one, because I don't think it'll come out as good as, you know, I'd like it to come out, and this is too chopped up, and, you know, it's the kids' piece for me to get anything decent. But my next video, my next hill video, which could be coming in a day or two, is going to be using this technique to cover it, so you'll be able to see the full process there. And what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll throw a link into this video so you can go and see it. You know, and what I'll do is I'll link directly to where this has been applied, and, you know, the colour inside, so you can see exactly. So, guys, can't be 100% perfect all the time, but that's the way we are. And let me go cameras up. I'm only human, guys. Less fags, more concentration, eh? Right, I hope you found it interesting. Give it a go, have a play with it, like anything. If you've got any questions, ask them away. If you've got anything to add, you know, your experiences, put them in the comments. Find me on Facebook, The Terrain Tutor. If you like it, like it. If you like the channel, subscribe. And if you wouldn't mind, tell your mates. Yeah? If you do like it, you think it's worth learning, you think it's useful, spread the word, eh? Anyway, I've got to crack on and go get the kids, so you have a good day, yeah? And I'll see you soon. Ta-ra.